more and more I see people, some people are open to it, some people aren't. My two conversations so first thing I do when I pick up the phone, call somebody or the seller or the owner or whatever it is, whoever I'm speaking with, my first two questions is, what's the deal structure, right? I see your price, I see your cap rate, that's great. Are you giving me a VTB?
Welcome back to the REI Hot Seat. Today we're talking real estate once again with Jacob Campagnaro, talking Northern Ontario real estate. And so sometimes if the deals aren't in your own backyard, or maybe you think there might be some better deals elsewhere, we can expand our search.
Well, I thought it was a good topic for, the current interest rate market we're in.
Yeah.
Right? Because a lot of people are looking at, nothing's cash flowing here in Burlington. Where do we go now? Right? And they're starting to look further north, further south, wherever it may be. And I thought
Burlington is a funny place to try and to get a deal done right now, right?
Yeah. Like it'd be a great place to do a deal. I'd love to buy something myself in Burlington, but it's just challenging, right? Because it's luxury product, even if it's an apartment building.
Yeah, and it's in a relatively high income area. Everything's going to cost a bit more. Like I mean, if Hamilton's expensive, Burlington's that much closer to Toronto. Yeah, and it's considered a nicer spot. So.
And we just don't have that much inventory.
True.
Right. But that's not what we're here. Let's talk about Northern Ontario.
Right. So this is the reason why people may go to Northern Ontario. I personally know many investors investing in places like Sudbury, North Bay, lesser so. Sault Ste. Marie, lesser so. Sudbury seems to be
Sudbury's the big one right now.
Kirkland Lake.
Yep.
I know someone investing up there.
Yep.
Timmins, know a guy doing that. And why are they all going to these Arctic climates?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Sorry to the people living there. I know it's not actually Arctic.
What's the pros and the cons of it, right? Like why? Yeah. And that's what I wanted to discuss on this show. And I think it's just a great topic for where we are.
A big pro was, you were buying houses for less than the cost of reconstruction. Like you couldn't rebuild them for less than their actual cost. Now, is that still the case? I don't know, because things have been getting driven up there. Now we've seen, now that the interest rates are higher, we're seeing stuff coming into the 5+, even getting into 6 caps, even around here, right?
Yep.
But I hear people talking about 6 caps up in Sudbury.
Yep.
So,
we just put a deal together at a 5.89, so about a 5.9 cap, in the Kingston area. Yeah. So things are coming up a bit. Yeah.
But it's funny just because I think there's so much investor competition up north now. Cat was obviously out of the bag. People were naturally looking to those markets because they were cheaper.
Yeah.
And they got some deals for a while. But I'm wondering, is it still a deal?
And I feel like it's a very similar conversation that people are having about like Calgary, right? Alberta.
Well,
right?
Calgary, Edmonton is a popular spot, and obviously, the prices do get driven up to a degree, but the property appreciation's been much less out there.
Yes, but what I'm saying is, like, over the last, let's call it, year, I've had clients from here in Ontario that I've worked with say, "Hey, Jake, like, take a look at this property out in Edmonton or Calgary," and
it seemed equivalent to what you can get here.
And I'm sitting there looking at it, and they're going, "Oh, it's such a good deal!" Like, there's like multiple offers on it. And I'm just like, hey man, like these numbers are very like, give me 2 months. I'll get you something in Ontario that looks similar, right? Maybe a little smaller, but cap rate wise is going to be relatively the same. Right. And it's been a much more stable market. So you got to be, you got to kind of, I don't know. I like to say go against the flow, right? If everybody's going out west, where should you be looking? Right.
Well, if you're going to go set up somewhere, it needs to be worth getting situated in that market. So you need to like the numbers. You need to like the average deal you find in that market. I think you like the economics of that area. Think of it as a place you want to grow. Yeah. Otherwise, don't go there.
And that's the first thing I always say to clients is when you're looking at markets outside of the GTA, outside of the Golden Horseshoe, demographics actually starts to play a really big role into it. And yes, even here, look at demographics. But usually if you're investing in the Golden Horseshoe, demographics aren't going to stop you from buying a building, right? You're saying,
a little bit, been that way for so long.
A little bit older of a population. Yeah. Oh, well, we're still buying.
Because there's just so many people flooding Ontario. Yeah. Like this is where like Ontario and Canada in general, to some degree, is I think way easier to do your research on where to invest, at least from is this city just going to dry up and go away? Yeah. That almost doesn't exist. Yeah. It seemingly almost doesn't exist in Ontario. Whereas in the States, like for instance, Youngstown, Ohio, where I used to invest, consistently the population decreases there. Yeah. Like it's not that easy to find places like that in Ontario. Yeah. because so many people pouring in. Yeah. But let's look at this deal. So this is a 27 unit purpose built within the last 10 years. So recent that Google Street View has not yet updated and I couldn't find it. I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't look right. But anyways, here's some pictures on the screen. And so, it's pretty new construction. It's got laundry. It's, you could assume to some degree that because it's last 10 years, it's probably done to a pretty good standard. What with modern building code and what have you. So yeah, that's the unit there. And let's just go ahead and take a look at some of the numbers. Okay, so we didn't have all the information on this one, but had some high level numbers. One of the things provided in the public facing seller package was the gross rents. So there was $385,000 annually, which I worked backwards on 27 units. What does that work out to be average? That's $1,190 average per unit.
Yeah.
So then I also looked at what would the average market be? And I know, Jake, you pulled up some listings and stuff. Seems like maybe a two bed's like $1,400, $1,450. People are advertising them at that level anyway.
Yeah. Like that's where we found them being advertised. The thing is with when you're looking for rental comps, it's tough when you get into these smaller towns because all I could find, Andrew, was the stuff that was sitting.
Right.
Like there is some stuff out there showing 2 beds, 3 beds at 21, 22, 2,300, like equivalent to what I would consider like Hamilton rents or Kitchener, Cambridge, Waterloo rents. Now those are the ones that are also sitting. So where does that leave us?
Yeah,
we have to
use deductive
reasoning to.
You'd have to be in the market and get a feel for it. But I think reasonably, we're looking at a market where there might be some upward potential, and that's what the listing information said too. It's a 10-year-old building. You're probably going to have some tenants that have been in there for a while. So reasonably, there's probably some upward mobility in the rents. But that's not where we're going to finish.
Which tends to happen in these smaller towns. Now that's not a northern town issue, but it's a smaller town thing where these apartment buildings, you find that it's been the same tenants for the past 40 years, 30 years, 10 years, whatever tenants. It may be. Yeah. But they tend to stay around, right?
They stick around. Well, also there's not that many places to go.
Right.
If you think about that one logically, like it's a lot easier to jump apartment buildings in a place like Hamilton than it is to in a small town where there might only be a couple.
Yeah. Now the flip side of that is, okay, sure, you have long-term tenants, but I know you and I have toured some buildings that have that tenant profile, and it's like they treat it like their house.
Yeah.
Right. I've gone into buildings where the tenants literally replaced windows, replaced the kitchen because they've been there so long. They just do it. It's unbelievable. So something to look into, right? It's, I know you need to drive rents to drive value, but sometimes it's not that bad to have a slightly older population in the building if the rents are within reason. Right?
And that is one of the things I noted on the little seller package is it's an older demographic. It's like 51's the median age.
Yeah,
that was surprising to me. Anyways, maybe that's normal.
Let's jump back. Let's finish the numbers and let's jump back into demographics and how to look at a small town.
So just want to give people a look at this. So it's near a place called North Cobalt. The place is called Hailybury, and it's right on the Ontario-Quebec border on a lake. That's kind of nice. So you got some water. I'm sure there's some nice views up there.
Yeah. Funny story. I actually went up there last year on a motorcycle trip. So I know I've seen it firsthand. I know exactly what that area looks like.
How was it? Nice town?
It is.
Quaint?
It's all right. Quaint's a good word for it.
All right. Okay, so looking through some of these numbers here, this is north, like north of North Bay, not as west as Sudbury, so just kind of going straight up.
Yeah.
But anyways, so taxes, $36,000. We got insurance. This is all from the seller package, $17,000. Maintenance, they gave a number. It was like $6,900, but they didn't include snow and lawn.
Yeah.
Looking at it, I don't think there is any lawn, but there is a big parking lot.
There is.
So I just put the $6,900.
Now there was a note in there, Andrew, saying that the property management company is willing to stay on.
Yeah, so they might do it.
And they might be handling that, right? So we have to dive into that a little more.
Right, and I didn't see a number from them for management and what they're paying. Maybe I missed that.
Convenient.
But, maybe convenient. Oh wait, management fees at $16,000. So that's what they said. So what would that look like? That's like a 4% management fee, ish.
Yeah.
Yeah. So about 4.5, we'll call it. So we can just leave that in there. Likely the management didn't include the snow removal, so I don't know what to include for that. Obviously their maintenance number seems understated And here's why. I mean, yes, it could be a new building, but you still have life cycle items that are gonna go. It's a 10-year-old building.
Yep.
Now you're starting to think about the roof. I mean, technically a roof should last longer, but it doesn't always, you don't always get it. I've had to replace a roof that was 6 years old.
Well, especially in much colder climates, right? We're also looking at something that's quite a bit north.
Yeah.
You know, the winters are worse there.
Yeah. Yep. So I'll write in 5,000 for the landscaping snow. I want to leave maintenance at 5%. If you go by the CMHC figure at 830 a door, that's actually 22,000, which works out to even higher than the 5%.
Yeah.
So I'll leave it at 5% for the moment, but know that that's a number to play with. So at 4.2 million, like they're asking, that's a 5.83% cap. Let's take a look.
Based on our numbers.
I
know advertising, they're saying something different, but...
Yeah. And everybody calculates numbers their own way. So This is why cap rates are deceiving. Like, we'll talk about this, but I know when you talk about a cap, Jake, you're talking about something more that would fall close to the CMHC guideline.
Yeah. And that's why caps are always a complicated topic when talking with investors or even sellers, like buyers and sellers.
Yeah.
Hey, I want a 5 cap. Great, I want a 5 cap.
Yeah.
Our 5 caps are $500,000 apart.
Yeah,
because our numbers are so different, right? So it's
which I'm just so used to seeing that. Especially
that's why I try to stay
stuff.
away from what's the cap conversation.
Yeah,
let's talk cap rate once we secure
and what's the price per door. The price. That's a more objective
price per door, and then I look at price per door, and I look at financing, debt service. Okay, so that's the more important.
Let's talk about what the financing would look like on something like this. 75%, or would you try MLI Select?
No, you're not getting MLI Select because of where it sits. Now you can't
get it up there.
You could get it there, but how are we closing this? Is the question, right? Are we doing? Is this going to be a bridge? Is this straight to CMHC?
You don't think the seller would be open to waiting? Maybe
more and more. I see people. Some people are open to it. Some people aren't.
Yeah.
My 2 conversations so the first thing I do when I pick up the phone, call somebody or the seller or the owner or whatever it is, whoever I'm speaking with, like. My first 2 questions is, what's the deal structure, right? I see your price. I see your cap rate. That's great. Are you giving me a VTB? No, I'm not giving you. Okay, that's fine.
Are you allowing an extended?
Allowing an extended close? No, I need something ASAP. Do you have a mortgage we can assume? No mortgage. You know what? I just go down the list and I try to find the angle.
Yeah, because it's all about angle and positioning, right? It's not like so many people are so used to just looking at sale price, how many bedrooms, blah, blah, blah. But it's the how.
Yeah.
It was such an important factor.
Yeah. Like a 4% VTB for 5 years. Gosh, that's got to be worth something.
It's worth something.
Right? And
for sure.
And I'll pay a premium for that. No problem.
And anyone would just build that into their numbers, or you should. If you're being prudent, you just build it into your numbers and figure out what it's worth to you.
Yeah. So that's my conversation right off the bat. I just wanted to say that.
And that's a good conversation to have. So if we looked at this at 75%, so just assume you're going to go with the regular bank mortgage, something you can close inside of 90 days. 25-year AM's what you're probably going to get, right? I don't know too much. You threw out that you can find 30s. I've never heard of that without CMHC being involved.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. You got to start introducing me to some of these lenders. Okay, so interest rate.
Well, let's pretend it's CMHC, Andrew, because you know what? Like realistically, I don't look at anything anymore unless it's a smoking deal or it's going to be CMHC.
So CMHC at 85%, we're going to assume 40-year AM, and then an interest rate of 5%.
I would say right now about 5%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, they were up to about 5.25. They came down. Yeah. I actually spoke with somebody today that said they ended up getting something in the 4s again recently. Yeah. So it's a little bit all over the place, but let's go 5 to be conservative.
Okay, so 5, I got that in there. That works out to be a cash flow on a monthly basis of $3,300 a month. What's it take to get that deal? Let's take.
Well, what's our DCR on that, Andrew?
Your debt coverage ratio is going to be 1.19 at that figure.
Yeah, so you're there. You can get traditional CMHC with that.
So the only thing we got to look up here is what's it take to close this deal. So it's going to cost $712,000 to close this deal between land transfer and the legal fees. I got to adjust that number. That's going to be more like $6,500. Actually, that's going to be more like $10,000.
I just do 10 now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm realizing lawyers are a heck of a lot more expensive than you'd think with commercial. So $720 to close that deal. Estimated return on this, if you think 2% appreciation is still a possibility, I don't think so. Let's go with 1%. You're about 15.9%. Not bad compared to what your savings account pays. But it all comes down to what you think long term. I think long term in Ontario, we're a lot more than a 1% appreciation. but we're not there yet. Maybe we're at 2% right now. I don't know. Like, we've seen the values go crazy lately, but it's also been, some markets have been down a bit lately.
I know,
too.
and it really depends where you're looking, right? And that's where this whole podcast is going here. Is I just want to, like, you look at Northern Ontario, you're much less likely to see passive appreciation in
Right. Well,
Cobalt,
because
Ontario,
these markets stagnated for so long before they started going up again.
Yeah.
And they didn't really start going up until markets like Toronto and the GTA and KW and Windsor started going nuts.
Yeah.
Like, when those markets went nuts, it forced people to start thinking tertiary markets. But before that, they weren't thinking that way. And there may be a time where people go back to that. I was listening to Quentin D'Souza talk the other day. And he was saying, and he's known for saying this, be wary of the small markets because they stagnate.
Yep.
And that's been the case. But does that mean it's the case going forward when you're immigrating like we are?
Yeah. I think small markets, Southwest Ontario.
Yeah, small markets in Southwest Ontario, I'm pretty keen
and that's
on.
always been my bread and butter. So I'm going to be biased on this, right? But I've always loved small markets, Southwestern Ontario.
Yeah.
There's so many tiny towns down there. And then look at what Empire Homes has done over the last little bit. Right, whether you believe with what they're doing, what they're not doing, whatever.
What have they done?
Well, so Hagersville, they built 2 massive 4-phase subdivisions. I'm not going to quote how many homes because I don't know. They're also doing the Welland Canal project. So they're building a whole community in Welland.
I think I've seen some of that.
High school, elementary school, park.
They're building a high school?
Yes, that's massive.
Brilliant. That's a brilliant move for a developer. And I remember a conversation I had with Harry Stinson many, many years ago, a developer who's done some interesting projects. And he did the One King West building. Yeah. And I asked him, how do you know a market? And he said, I don't know the market. He's like, I make my market.
Yeah.
And that's
what Empire's been doing.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
so they did it with Hagersville. Now they're doing it with Welland.
Yeah.
They're doing a whole bunch of other projects, but they're just going into these small towns where they're like, hey, you're still close enough to commute. Right? Yeah. You still can get places within an hour. You have your infrastructure there. You have the grocery stores, the population, and you know that people are going to be driving out that way. So then you just build these whole communities out there, right? And the funny thing about the Welland one is, like, you look at where they're doing it. It's historically probably the worst end of town. Like, it's hardcore industrial,
but it just
that they're cleaning up the brownfields and they're doing massive development there.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. So, long story short, there's these small town Northern Ontario, I think we have to look at differently than small town Southern Ontario.
Because small town Southern Ontario is accessible. Yes. Like, you're going to find people who would go to GTA who would be open to Welland.
Yeah.
Where they're not going to go to Kirkland Lake. No. That's a different demographic. It's an entirely different market.
Yeah. And then you
have to say that it's bad.
And then you have to look at the driving factors of why people are living there. Right?
Yeah, why are people? Well, I mean, I think they're driven up to Sudbury for industry, right?
Well, Sudbury's different because Sudbury's kind of like a big Northern Ontario
hub,
town, right? Like Kirkland Lake, not so much.
No.
Cobalt, not so much. Like, we're talking about really small towns now.
What's this place called? Hailyville?
Yeah, Temiskaming Shores.
Okay,
is what it's called.
Shore.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, Hailybury.
Yeah. So what are you doing up there? Mining, right?
Yeah.
Farming, perhaps. I know up that area there is actually farms out there.
Yeah, there's going to be lots of that kind of thing. And then there's going to be all the support,
and then the support for all of that, right? But then if you also have a median population of 55, you said 51? 51, aging population, smaller town. What happens when, inevitably that population starts to pass away, right? Like, or, what do we do at that point? Does that town start? Does the population then start coming down?
Here, I'll give you the contrasting point. I think that the work from home movement has grown as Ontario continues to become more and more expensive. The employer flexibility on work from home is going to get better.
Correct.
So I think that there will be some people who just go up there for the value. Yep. Some, not all, but there are people who will move across the country for a better deal.
And I talk to people every day that end up in small towns or cottage towns because they're like, hey man, I'm working full time from here and all I want to do is fish and go hunting and whatever. And it fits their lifestyle, right? So it's interesting. But I think the full story here is when it comes to small town Northern Ontario, you have to really dive into the demographic before you even look at the numbers of the building.
And don't go for a town that has only 1 or 2 industries because if it's like one mine, you have one major employer.
Or logging or something. Yeah.
What happens if that shuts down? Or if that mine, if they no longer need that mineral, like just be really sure. If it's a nickel mine, we've been mining nickel forever, right? But make very, very sure that even if the current company that mines that goes under, that somebody else is going to want to come in there and continue on. So you're going to want to know what's going on industry-wise, demographic-wise.
Yeah, and understand, look, if the mine has X amount of years on it still, so maybe it's a short-term play.
Yeah.
Maybe if the cap's so good, you get in there, you do a few things, hang on to it, and you flip it in a year or two.
Yeah.
But I don't think, like, at least me, and I'm only talking to my experience, if I don't have a very strong understanding of that demographic, it's not going to be a generational wealth building. It's not for my kids. It's going to be an in and out, make my buck, and get out of here.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's that. Just do your homework. That's the big lesson here. I think that's the big takeaway. So we'll wrap it up on that one. If people want to know more from Jake, so Jake's able to help people with listings just like this one. A lot of times on the show, we talk about off-market stuff. Jake's the guy I will tell other realtors to go to if they're doing commercial jobs. I literally just did this the other night. So if you want to talk to Jake and learn more about projects like this and potentially get into something like this, link is in the description of this video.
Appreciate it.
And Jake, thanks for doing this as always. Guys, share this with your friends, like, subscribe, give us some love here and help this channel grow. We really appreciate it. We'll see you again next week.
Thank you.